I can't help but peek in on internet conversations about creepy things. I am an absolute whore for anything spooky. I love scary movies and games, but there's something about the bizarre and mysterious being spoken of casually that makes it feel more real than anything else could. I always eventually find myself craving that again. I typically join these conversations on Reddit or paranormal image boards just to find some spooky subject worth looking into. One such discussion I found myself in was about cursed videos. I was on a message board that I like to visit where we were discussing the story used to market the movie Antrum. The movie had been popularized as a cursed film using a false history. It was said that viewings of the film were followed by disaster and death. Fictitious as the story behind the film was, the idea presented was one that intrigued me. A film that was so sinister in nature that simply viewing it would bring about the viewer's demise. When someone by the username Courier404 decided to chime in, he stated that he had a video that was supposedly so cursed, but he never watched it because the idea just freaked him out too much. He sent me a link to a downloadable file that he put in cloud storage, Construct.MP4. I downloaded the file, but I never ended up watching it. I felt like I was directly being given the tape from The Ring. Every time I moved to start it, I stalled with the cursor hovering over the file. Suddenly, I'd have no reason to even bother watching. Suddenly, I'd be so much the skeptic that entertaining such whimsical ideas, even for entertainment, just seemed childish of me. It sat on my PC desktop for more than a week, and every time I booted it up, it was right there with me. I'd sit there under the weight of its presence, feeling as though it were instead watching me. I guess all that false skepticism only helped me fool myself. When I booted up the PC to turn on the movie that I wanted to watch with my friend Sarah, she started interrogating me over the way I looked at it. She knows I'm into spooky stuff. After I told her the story behind it, she was surprised to see me unnerved by such a thing instead of excited. Sarah is a devoted Christian, and it's probably what keeps her so much more grounded than me. She decided to watch the video in my stead so I could stop thinking about it. For a little more context, Sarah wasn't just a friend to me. She was someone I respected and admired. I asked her out on a date once and she turned me down, but I stuck around thinking I'd find a way to win her over. I assumed that's why she'd want to do that for me. Even if only as a friend, I'd like to think she had a soft spot for me after all of that. She copied it to a flash drive to watch later. After she had, she told me that she couldn't actually remember what she saw in the video, but was certain that it was nothing. A little more than a week later, I learned that she had tricked herself into a facility for the mentally unwell. She had not told me about the feelings of terror she'd been experiencing. In both her waking hours and while she slept, she felt the presence of something watching her. She'd hear its voice calling out to her, demanding her attention. She could not escape the feeling of its eyes on her everywhere she went, despite it being nowhere in sight. It stalked her from the recesses of her own mind. I'd go see her every day, hoping to see her condition improve, and before long it had. Sarah came back to university looking more lively than I'd seen her in years. She radiated confidence and focus, being more outgoing than I had ever seen her. One day, she asked me to meet her on campus. I got there 10 minutes early, thinking we'd finally get back to just being able to spend time together. To my disappointment, she had shown up with 2 members of her church. She introduced them as Henry and Lena. I was caught off guard when she started speaking about the MP4 and what it taught her. She said that it was a message from a higher power and that we need to hear that message. She invited me to watch the video with the three of them. I declined, but agreed to at least come talk with them more. Frankly, it scared the shit out of me seeing the state she was in. She hadn't recovered with the help she was given at that facility. In fact, she had completely lost it. Even so, I was happy to at least have her back. I should have called someone about her. I should have tried to get her some professional help, but I wanted so badly for things to be okay that I just disregarded it. When Henry and Lena left her later that night, she told me what brought her to this. She had had a crisis of faith, wrestling with the knowledge that there's something out there that can't be explained by anything taught in her church. She despaired over that until it hit her. It's not known in her church because it hasn't ever been written about. She excitedly slammed a little black leather-bound book down on the table, declaring, "That's why I've been hearing his voice. It's my job to write the Holy Scripture." I started meeting with Sarah and the others regularly, and each time we met, their group would be larger. Sarah spoke and they all listened. She was a natural leader. They would tell me about their visions and what it all meant to them, but mostly they would talk about this disembodied voice that would call out to them and guide them. Before long, I had taken a morbid fascination with these visions. Were they having visions caused by some anomalous property of that MP4, or were they imagining things based on what they were told about it? What could the file have had in it that originally caused Sarah such visions? None of this bothered me until the first death that I heard about. It was a student at university. He was found dead in his room. The cause of death was unknown. He simply went to sleep the night before and never woke up. I recognized him immediately. His name was Charlie. He had come to a few meetings weeks before his death. He watched the video with a few other newcomers and stopped showing up. I figured that it must have been more than he could handle, so he decided to stop coming. I asked Henry if he knew anything about it and immediately wished I hadn't. It is his will. Those who lack faith face punishment by his hand. Had Charlie's faith been stronger, he'd be here with us right now. I could have puked right there, but knew that I had to keep my composure. The whole time I had been thinking of it as simply hanging out with Sarah and her new friends. The idea that they could be dangerous to people that leave brought my attention to two very important facts. First, I never believed in the things they discussed. The second was that I couldn't remember whether or not I'd ever stated so. Suddenly, I felt exposed, like the elk hearing the hunter chamber his first round. I considered talking to the police about the few things I knew, but I understood that doing so could risk me being found out. If they really did kill Charlie, why would I assume I could escape if I left the church? My thoughts stuck to that word as I considered my current predicament. When did I start acknowledging it as a church? Most churches don't have members coincidentally die after leaving the faith. I tried to think of some other explanation and kept finding my thoughts returning to this one question. Did I accidentally join a cult? Before I could reach a conclusion, Sarah was at the front of the room clearing her throat to get everyone's attention. She announced that she'd be picking a successor as she would soon be ascending. Everyone cheered for her, but I was mortified. I had no idea what that meant, but I knew it couldn't be good. I went home that night planning to find out more about the cult without exposing myself. If I presented the police with strong enough proof, they'd have to make enough arrests to shut the whole thing down, right? It was a half-baked plan, but it was the only one I had. I started by looking up any members that stopped coming around and found that several had died the same way that Charlie had. One girl by the name Marissa had left university and went back home to stay with her parents. I went to her Facebook page, desperate for a way to find her, but saw that she hadn't made any recent posts, When I scrolled down a bit, I saw a post that people were commenting on as an art project. The video was recorded from her phone. In that video, she was running down a suburban street, constantly aiming the phone behind her. When she stopped running to catch her breath, she turned around to look a little longer. I watched as she backed away and some slim figure stepped out of the dark. It stopped just out of direct contact with the brighter area and the street lamp's glow. Several others crept out from behind cars and suburban homes. They moved with uncanny speed and grace. She tried to turn and run but tripped. The video ended there just as I could hear a scream cut short. Before I could find much else, I heard a knock at my door. Sarah had come to apologize for not having told me sooner. I let her in and talked to her about it for a while, trying to figure out what it even meant to ascend. Once again, she saw right through my attempt at a poker face. She reassured me that it was a good thing and that there was no reason to be concerned. She said that it had her both afraid and excited. She didn't know what to expect, but could see that it was necessary. She asked to spend the night at my place, and of course I didn't tell her no. For the first time, she spent the night in my arms. It was arguably the best night of my life. At the same time, I could call it the worst. When I woke up, Sarah was gone. She had simply disappeared. Neither Henry or Lena or any of the others knew what happened to her. The only actual attempt that someone made to give me useful information was a reminder of what was already stated. Don't you remember? She said that she's going to be ascending. I was half convinced that the cult did something to her, but even she was certain about this. I spent the morning looking for her, and by noon I was both terrified and pissed. I thought to find answers in the one place that there had to be an explanation for everything. I had to message Courier 404 and ask what the hell that video was. I was certain that file was made with some sort of subliminal messaging or coded message. When I messaged him, he responded almost immediately. Me. What the fuck is that video you sent me? It's doing weird shit to people. Courier 404. Wasn't that the idea? Me. I'm serious, people are losing it after watching the video and my best friend just disappeared. Everyone is saying that she ascended. It's not just a fun chat when people start getting hurt. Courier 404. Then they've been listening to the message, huh? Me. What the fuck is this? Courier 404. Everything is to spread his gospel. Through my efforts as well as yours. Me. I don't want to be a part of this. I want my friend back. I want this video away from me and the people I care about. Courier 404. And yet you've done so much work in service of his name. Even I couldn't have accomplished the amount of work that you have. Me. I'm going to find a way to stop what's happening over here. To undo the damage this video has caused and find you to make sure that you can't do this again. Courier 404. Then come find me. But his will is stronger than either you or me. He sent me another link. One that I assumed would lead me to an address. Instead, the link took me to a live webcam feed. I didn't immediately recognize what I was looking at, but it was me. It showed me sitting at my PC wearing a wide, insanity-driven grin. I studied the grin intensely, and as I did, I reached up to touch my face and prodded my lips. I was indeed grinning so grotesquely, and the image of me in the live feed copied my movements to check. Given an additional 5 seconds or so of lag. In the feed, I held a smartphone that I didn't recognize in my left hand. When I looked down at its screen, The few things I understood stopped making sense. On the phone, I was logged into Courier 404's account, and I could see that I had essentially been talking to myself, speaking as two different people, using different accounts. Furthermore, I could see that from the Courier 404 account, I had been messaging several members of the cult, including Sarah. They were asking Courier 404 for guidance. I thought about every conversation that one of them would start, telling me about their God. They weren't looking to teach me about their God. They were looking for me to teach them. I made the mistake of mentioning this to Lena, and everything changed. The following day, the cult seemed to just go apeshit. They ramped up the activity and all hell broke loose. Someone impersonated a stand-in for a professor who was late to class and played the video on his projector. People I've never met keep thanking me and offering me gifts for being a guiding beacon of light. I've hit a dead end looking for Sarah, and I'm past being desperate. If it could possibly do anything to help me find her, the last thing I can do is watch the video. After I post this, I'm going to start the video file and watch it. If you've been affected by the video, the cult, or by my actions, I'm so sorry. None of this was supposed to happen. Whatever this does to me and whatever happens next, this is all there is left.